Well, so let me do my rant then.
On Marner?
No, it's not on Marner.
Okay, what's it on?
So here's what you're gonna get. All right, because I was like flow charts and lab coat this morning, like a scientist who is constantly ignored at the beginning of a disaster movie. Okay, and I know my reputation. Adam and I had a good discussion before the show. I do have a rant, but it's coming later, and that one's gonna be loud. This one is an indoor voice rant.
So you have 2 rants.
I have 2 rants.
This is gonna be.
This one is a Leaf rant.
Yeah.
And it is an indoor voice rant.
What?
What's that, Maddie?
Mixer.
What is that?
Have fun with the audio.
Oh,
mixer.
yeah. Well, I'll turn down Steve's mic a little. Yeah.
This is an indoor voice rant.
Yeah.
Because it's not emotional. It's not emotional in the least. It is cold, hard fact. So, can the Leafs be a team like Vegas? Can the Leafs simply wait a year for John Tavares' contract to expire? Those are great questions.
Mm-hmm.
Questions worth asking. Smart Leaf fans are asking them. Let's attempt to answer it. Last year, the cap hits for the Toronto Maple Leafs core 4. Austin Matthews made $11,640,250 against the cap. William Nylander, $6,962,366 against the cap. John Tavares, $11 million flat against the cap. Mitch Marner, $10,903,000 against the cap, for a total of $40,505,616 against the salary cap. The salary cap was $83.5 million. That is 48.5% of the cap. Well, luckily, the salary cap is going up this year.
Okay.
And it's going up significantly this year. It's going up $4.5 million. That's a lot, and it's the most since the COVID shutdown.
Mm-hmm.
That should be great news for the Leafs, except it's not. This upcoming season, because Matthews has an extension kicking in and Nylander has an extension kicking in, Matthews is going from 11.6 something to 13.25. Nylander is going from 6.9 something to 11.5. So here's what you get. 13.25 for Matthews, 11.5 for Nylander, 11 for Tavares, 10.903 for Mitch Marner. That is a total of $46,653,000 wrapped up in 4 men, 4 guys. The salary cap will be $88 million. That takes up 53.01% of the cap, up from 48.
So it's going to be more. The core 4 will cost the Leafs more percentage of cap this year than it did last.
Yes, Adam. That is exactly what I'm saying. I'll read what I said in my Twitter thread. I have more than this available for today's show. I've done more research. What I said was, I've seen a lot of debate about what the Leafs should do in free agency, but what you do with the core 4 dictates everything. Even though the salary cap is going up, the amount of cap space you have to surround those guys goes down this upcoming season by $1,647,384. The Leafs were 1 round and out this year. This upcoming season, they're going to have less cap space to surround the core 4 than they did last year.
But Steve, injuries.
But yeah, injuries are part of the reason why the Leafs were able to even pull off a roster last year, because they just put everybody on LTIR, right? Like Matt Murray's coming off the books, and I want to say Jake Muzzin as well. They have some maneuvering to do. Now, here's another thing that some people said. Well, there's a lot of expensive players in the league right now.
Mm-hmm.
The Leafs aren't the only team doing this. You're right. The Leafs are not the only team with a bunch of expensive stars on their roster. However, their stars are outrageously more money, cost outrageously more than any other team that they should be trying to emulate. So let's look. The Leafs, their core 4, Matthews, Nylander, Tavares, Marner, $46,653,000.
Mm-hmm.
Let's look at the team that beat them, the Boston Bruins. Their top 4 paid guys, Pasternak, McAvoy, Lindholm, Marchand, $33,375,000. That is a difference of 13.278. That is a difference of more than Austin Matthews' extension between the Toronto Maple Leafs and the team that beat them in this past year's playoffs. Well, should the Leafs want to emulate the Bruins? The Bruins were out in the second round. Okay, fine. Let's look at the Florida Panthers. $37 million tied up in their core four of Barkov, Bobrovsky, Tkachuk, and Ekblad. That is a difference of $9,653,000. You know what? We've come this far. Let's do all the top four or the final four teams from this year's playoffs. The Oilers, McDavid, Nurse, Draisaitl, Ekholm. That is their four most expensive guys. $36,250,000. That is a difference of $10.403 million. The New York Rangers, Panarin, Fox, Zibanejad, Trouba. Trouba, but still $37,642,857 against the cap. That is a difference of $9,010,143. The Dallas Stars, Sagan, Ben, Hintz, Heiskanen, $36,250,000. You might say, well, I'll take the Leafs core four over that core four. Fair enough, but it's a difference of $10,403,000. Now let's go in. Let's round it off by looking at the rest of the teams that have won a Stanley Cup post-COVID. The Vegas Golden Knights, because they spend money on everyone, right? There's no salary
They're in on
cap.
every star.
Yeah, they're in on every star. Here's part of the reason why. Stone, Eichel, Pietrangelo, Hanifin is actually their core four this upcoming season. It's going to cost them $35,650,000. How are they able to go out and get everyone? Well, because their four most expensive guys are $11,003,000 less than the Leafs core four.
Mm-hmm.
The Colorado Avalanche.
That's probably going to change with like the Marchessault deal that he has to sign and that sort of stuff.
If he signs there, like at some point you're going to start losing guys, right? But it hasn't happened yet. The Colorado Avalanche, the closest thing we have to the Leafs, closest thing, believe it or not, in terms of salary structure. Their core four still includes two defensemen, so it's different from the Leafs in that regard, which is a big regard. Nathan McKinnon, Mikko Rantanen, Cale Makar, Devon Toews. Would you rather have the Leafs core four or that? I know my answer. $38,100,000. It's the closest thing to the Leafs core four structure, and it's still a difference of $8,553,000 in cap space. Imagine going out in free agency and adding someone who makes over $8.5 million to your team. Like Landeskog isn't even part of the core four if he were healthy and LTIR. Like I factored all that in. And then we look at the Lightning, who went to 3 straight finals. Kucherov, Point, Vasilevsky, Sergachev, $37 million on the button.
You don't say Stamkos in there too?
No, because he doesn't have a top four.
So top four
cap
salary.
hit. Yeah. I'm just going top four. The reason they're able to afford a guy like Stamkos or Hedman is somehow not in their top four
because they signed it at discounts.
They signed it. Yeah, well, they signed it cleverly, and when you do things cleverly, and state tax, whatever, cry me a river. Like the
not even
is what it is.
Well, and there's also ways around the tax in Canada. We've talked about this many times on AP.
Yes.
The point I'm trying to make is that. It has to do with the players also wanting to keep the team together.
Exactly. Well, and good for them. Look at the results for them, and look at the results for the Leafs. $37 million on the button. That is $9,653,000 less than the Leafs core four. So your question: what about Stamkos? What about Hedman? You could bring in Stamkos into that equation and still have like $1.5 million left over afterward. That is the difference between the Lightning and the Leafs. That is the difference between all these teams and the Leafs. Now, very important question. Someone said, this isn't rocket science to me. And I was like, well, then you explain it to me. This isn't rocket science. The Leafs wait a year, let John Tavares walk, extend Marner, so that you can keep Matthews, Nylander, Marner.
Oh, Steven, did you bring up the swappy doodle-doo?
The swappy doodle doo? Yeah. I'm bringing up the swappy doodle doo.
Remember back in February?
Yeah.
where I outlined we could do the swappy doodle do when it looked like the team was going to perform well in the playoffs, and I was on the board of bring back the band.
So I'm going to go through two scenarios here. Two scenarios with John Tavares. Number one is he walks for nothing. Okay. The other is he signs an extension at a way reduced rate with the Toronto Maple Leafs, which is something I would be interested in. And people go, that solves all your problems.
Right.
Okay. Well, I'm going to do this off the top of my head because I've done this so many damn times. Let's say the salary cap goes up an additional $4.5 million. That's wishful thinking. Like, what does Alan think? Like, do you?
No. That's it, the expectation is it's $4 million this year, and it's
$4.5 million this year.
$4.5 million this year, and it's almost set in stone that it'll be 93 next year. And then Alan was saying between 97 and 98 the year after.
Great. Okay. So
Yeah, they're going to maximize the 5% jump that's allowed in the CBA each of the years that the CBA is still intact.
great. I hope it is 93 million. So in my calculations, I factored in 92.5. Kiss FM. I factored that in. Because it just goes up by the same amount that it did this past year. So let's say it's a $92.5 million cap 2 seasons from now. Okay. And let's say Mitch Marner signs a contract extension with the Toronto Maple Leafs for $11.5 million, identical to William Nylander. First of all, pause for laughter. He's not. He's going to...
Yeah, I would expect 12 and a half.
Yeah,
what
he's
his
want
camp is going to want to settle at.
significantly more than that. But let's say it goes up to $92.5 million and he makes 11.5. That would be 13.25 for Matthews, 11.5 for Nylander, 11.5 for Marner, 0 for John Tavares. The core 3 then would take up 37.95, round up, 38% of the salary cap. Still a lot, still way more than any other team in this equation that we're talking about, unless you factor in the Edmonton Oilers, who are going to have to extend Leon Draisaitl. And CJ is openly talking about the prospect of the Oilers potentially trading him, right? And him being done with that team. The Nurse contract like sinks the whole equation for that whole thing, because then you're going to have to extend Bouchard as well. But enough about the Oilers. Let's just look at it this way. You let Tavares walk, it's $11 million free. You get $11 million to spend on whatever you want. Well, here's what you're going to spend it on. All right. This upcoming season, you have Joseph Woll. You have your starting goaltender. Do you understand how made in the shade this situation is for the Leafs? Your starting goaltender makes less than league minimum. Less than league minimum. He makes under $800,000. It's one of the best goalie contracts in the entire league, at least for this upcoming season. You can't be more fortunate than that, than under league min. Matthew Knies is also on the last year of his entry-level deal. Both of these young men are going to need a contract extension at the end of this season. Let's say Woll gets $3.8 million per season. That would roughly be in line with what Kevin Weeks was talking about. I think he said between $3.5 and $4 million, or was it $3 and $4 million?
3.5 and 4.
So let's say 3.8. Let's say Woll is making $800,000. He's making a little less than that, but just for the sake of math, 3.8. Out of your $11 million, there goes 3. Now you're left with 8. Matthew Knies makes $925,000 against the cap. Let's say he has a really good season this year. Let's really, really undershoot it. And let's say he gets 2.95. Let's say he gets a $2 million raise. That's it.
I think he gets that raise if he has a bad season.
I know.
Okay.
But I'm
right.
going, everything is rosy and amazing.
Okay.
He gets a $2 million raise. You had $11 million to spend. You lost 3 of it from the Joseph Woll extension. Now you've lost another 2 from Matthew Knies. You have $6 million left. Well, you can just bring John Tavares back at $6 million. Let's say John Tavares is willing to do that. Guess what? You have the exact same team. You have added nothing. You haven't improved a lick. Your older players have gotten older. Your younger players have gotten older. Call it a break even. Matthews is still in his prime. Nylander's still in his prime. Marner's still in his prime. Or if you simply let John Tavares walk, you have about $6 million remaining, optimistically, to spend on a second line center, which is roughly what they cost anyway, if not more.
Oh, by that time, it'll be more.
By that time, it'll probably be more. So,
I'll be interested.
let John Tavares walk.
What does Chandler Stevenson get this offseason? That's
Exactly.
my question.
Something like that. Like, just let John Tavares walk. People aren't, like, they're just saying that and throwing it over their shoulder. Guys, it's wrong. It's not a good plan. It doesn't work. You're acting like that is the only thing that's going to happen. The only thing that's going to happen is John Tavares' contract is simply going to expire, and there are going to be no other issues to handle. Nick Robertson scored 15 goals playing like 5 seconds last year. What's he going to get as a restricted free agent?
They do talk about that later on in the press conference, and
right.
All Brad says is nothing to report, which means they're asking too much, and the Leafs are offering too little.
Right. Okay. And they're going to go out and they're going to get Matt Roy and they're going to get Chris Tanev in free agency. That's awesome. Who the heck's playing in Max Domi and Tyler Bertuzzi's spot?
Yeah.
Gee, whack-a-mole. That's $8.5 million right there. You going to be able to get Tanev and Roy done for $8.5 million? No.
Unless you sign Tanev to like a ridiculously long deal that you're going to LTIR.
An absurdly long deal that even that might not be enough to completely make it even. So when I talk about trading Marner, it's not about trading Marner. You can go ahead and trade Austin Matthews. Go ahead. Do it.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead and trade William Nylander. Good. Whatever is the case, whatever you decide on, this can't continue. You can't do this anymore. Someone said emotionally, and that's fine, if the Leafs win next year, I better not see you celebrating. I'm a Leafs fan. I want them to succeed. Whether they trade someone out of the core four or they bring them back, I'll be cheering for them. I'll be hoping that they do well for the hockey team that I cheer for. There's no evidence. There's no track record whatsoever to suggest that's going to happen. There's no evidence.
I think people are trying to paint you into a corner to be like a Pollyanna where you're a fan, but you never criticize. And I think some fans believe that you don't criticize teams. And I think that's completely erroneous.
You're asking me to stick my head in the sand.
Yeah.
You're asking me to completely stick my head in the sand and ignore all the problems that this team is dealing with.
I also want to point out something.
Okay.
Not to take away from your point, but to reinforce your point. And I don't know if you guys noticed this. Jesse, when Steve was going through all the core fours on all these teams, what was different about the Leafs core four other than the money? Can you pick it out?
I know.
The other teams have been wildly more successful.
Yes. Number one. Why? Number two. And this will It's a little unfair that I'm throwing this at you, but I want to know.
Why have they been more successful?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think that 2 or more of the core 4 have been defensemen.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, every single one of those teams
had a
at least one
defenseman.
At least one.
That's why, I've always been on the bandwagon of if Mitch Marner's $11 million was for a defenseman, this team would be so much better.
Mm-hmm. Guys, no team is built this way.
Yeah. What if that $11 million was a right-handed defenseman? That'd be cool.
What if it was 2?
Yeah.
You could get 2 pretty good ones.
Nah, I want Cale Makar.
No team.
Okay, fair.
No team.
Or Evan Bouchard, same level.
No team has been built this way in the past. No team is built this way now. No team will be built this way going forward. Except for the Leafs. It shouldn't be a controversial take that this is a poor choice for a way to build your team.
What say you, Steve Dangle, to the detractors who say Mitch Marner has another level to go to and that he will end up being a great playoff performer?
Show your work. Show your work.
There's no evidence to back it up, but what if one day what if next season he takes another step?
Show your work. He's 27. Ken Hollins did not go to the Edmonton Oilers when he was getting ready to offer Zach Hyman $5.5 million. He didn't go, you know what? He's going to score 70 goals between the regular season and playoff. He didn't know. He didn't know. What you're asking me to do is just take a blind leap of faith. And I'm not going to do that. It's like saying Matthews, forget Marner. Leave Marner out of the equation. Matthews is going to score a goal a game next year in the playoffs. Nylander is going to score a goal a game. One of these guys is going to go on a McDavid 40-plus point run. There's no evidence to suggest that's coming down the pipeline.
And
There's
running
none.
a billion-dollar hockey team on blind faith
Yeah.
isn't a good way to run your operation.